The embittered separation of the Duke and Duchess of Argyll was quite possibly the most tempestuous legal disputes of the 20th century, full of imitation, payoff, robbery and outrage encompassing unequivocal photos. Appealing Margaret, Duchess of Argyll's standing never recuperated, after she was marked a sex fiend by her husband, Scottish peer Ian Douglas Campbell, 11th Duke of Argyll, who took an explicit Polaroid image of her and utilized it to uncover her unfaithfulness, making her one of the primary casualties of vengeance pornography, as indicated by her biographer. The picture supposedly showed Margaret wearing just her particular triple pearl necklace while filleting an unidentified man and was allegedly full frontal and left nothing to the creative mind. She never let on the personality of her male friend in the snap, just envisioned starting from the neck, and he got known as the Headless Man, while she was marked the Filthy Duchess. Right up till the present time, his personality stays obscure. However, throughout the long term it's been theorized that the man was New York stockbroker Joe Thomas, who Margaret delighted in a sentiment with before she met and wedded the Duke. Different reports guaranteed it was the entertainer Douglas Fairbanks Jr., previous Nazi Sigismund von Braun, and Duncan Sandys, the Minister of Defense and Winston Churchill's child-in-law. Presently the couple's dangerous 1963 separation fight, which made headline news, is to be the focal point of another BBC miniseries entitled A Very British Scandal. It will come from a similar group behind A Very English Scandal, which performed the Jeremy Thorpe adventure that shook the UK government in the 1970s. Claire Foy is set to star as Margaret inverse Paul Bettany, who will play her subsequent spouse, the 11th Duke of Argyll, whose most youthful child is Lord Colin Ivar Campbell, previous husband of Lady Colin Campbell. Lyndsy Spence, who wrote The Grit in the Pearl, The Scandalous Life of Margaret, Duchess of Argyll, said Margaret was from various perspectives an early casualty of VIP hacking, with her private pictures uncovered without her say-so. She was freely t-disgraced, the very general set of laws that kept Margaret from disclosing to her side of the story without the danger of detainment, allowing Ian to show the taken Polaroids, she clarified. The arrangement will especially zero in on the mentalities towards ladies at that point, as Margaret was especially attacked all through her separation fight for declining to go discreetly notwithstanding being deceived by companions and openly disgraced by society. Born in East Renfreshire in 1912 as Ethel Margaret Whigham, she was simply the lone youngster made mogul George and Helen, and spent her adolescence between New York, London and Ascot. In any case, her dad's philandering negatively affected her mom, who endured outrageous emotional episodes as a result. Margaret was taken to a specialist at 6 years old, who determined her to have coming up short on an awareness of what's actually funny. She additionally built up a stammer, for which she was dealt with ineffectively by Lionel Logue, King George VI's language instructor. She favored men's organization since early on, and lost her virginity to entertainer David Niven when she was 15. She fell pregnant and had a mysterious end, orchestrated by her folks. After 2 years her social vocation took off when she was named Debutante of the Year in 1930. She proceeded to have 4 bombed commitment, first to Prince Ali Khan, whose Muslim confidence repulsed the Whighams, Glenn Kidston, a wedded mogul athlete who kicked the bucket in plain accident, Max Aitken, the child of Lord Beaverbrook, and Fulk Warwick, a poverty-stricken duke. At 20, she ultimately wedded Charles Sweeney, an Irish-American stockbroker and beginner golf player, whose family's millions came from coal mining, oil, and refining. Their big day was a charming issue, halting traffic for 3 hours as 2,000 visitors went to the Brompton Oratory while another 2,000 spectators assembled to see her Norman Hartnell wedding outfit's 28-feet train. The couple stayed wedded for a very long time, during which Margaret endured 8 unnatural birth cycles and a stillbirth prior to inviting a little girl, Frances, and child Brian. In any case, their relationship separated, with Margaret pinning it on Charlie's philandering during the conflict, asserting all he needed in a life partner was a pretty brainless doll. He, nonetheless, guaranteed she changed absolutely in the wake of falling 40 feet down a lift shaft in 1943 while visiting a chiropodist on Bond Street, a mishap her next spouse additionally used to guarantee she'd endured mind harm so he could separate from her on the grounds of craziness. It was likewise reputed that the fall had caused nymphomania, just as harm to her olfactory nerve, which influences one's feeling of smell. Before she met and wedded the Duke in 1951, 4 years after her separation from Charles Sweeney in 1947, Margaret appreciated a sentiment with New York stockbroker Joe Thomas. In January 2019, Ms. Spence guaranteed he is the Headless Man from the Polaroid. It was previously rumored to have been Douglas Fairbanks Jr., previous Nazi Sigismund von Braun, and Duncan Sandys, the Minister of Defense and Winston Churchill's child-in-law. Margaret and Joe met in Berlin and purportedly took unequivocal photos utilizing a Polaroid camera, keeping one each as a token. They supposedly showed Margaret wearing just her particular triple pearl necklace while filleting an unidentified man. Notwithstanding, regardless of proposing to Margaret, Joe was at that point pledged to socialite Poppy de Salis. He ventured out to St. Moritz to end it with his first fiancée, however wound up wedding her, making Margaret extremely upset. Ms. Spence talked with Joe's child Michael, who discovered his dad's duplicates of the Polaroids while glancing through an old trunk. Margaret put away her duplicate behind a shelf in her home in London, yet their concealing spot was ultimately thundered by her upset second spouse, who utilized them to fuel his cases about her promiscuity. Margaret met Ian Campbell, Duke of Argyll, on a train at Gare du Nord in 1949. He sought after her steadily, realizing she was affluent, while his own home was useless. She showed compassion for him, after he advised her of his 5 years spent as a POW and his conjugal issues with his second spouse Louise, an American beneficiary, and persuaded her dad to give him £100,000 to re-establish his family seat in western Scotland, Inverary Castle. The Duke at that point manufactured a deed of gift and vowed to wed her when his separation had come through. They marry in 1951, yet Ian before long showed his genuine nature. Ms. Spence asserted he had an addiction to betting, liquor and doctor-prescribed medications, and an eccentric temper. He developed to detest his significant other when she started declining to take care of anything else of his obligations following 3 years of marriage. The couple consented to have an open marriage and live independently. Irate that Margaret was done subsidizing his unpredictable way of life, the Duke set about attempting to separate from Margaret and recruited investigators for hire to follow her. He accumulated proof to demonstrate she was untrustworthy, including taking her letters and journals which contained the names of her supposed sweethearts, large numbers of whom Ms. Spence demands were gay, while she was abroad. It was then that he went over the Polaroids. Ian recorded a separation appeal with the Court of Session in Edinburgh, which required 4 years to arrive at a verdict. Lord Wheatley, prestigious for his unforgiving sentences, supervised the case and governed. Margaret was a exceptionally sexed lady who has stopped to be happy with typical sexual exercises. The Duke was allowed a separation on the grounds of Margaret's infidelity, and she was requested to pay 7/8 of the £50,000 legitimate bill. In the interim, nothing was said about Ian's own issues or his ensuing remarriage to Matilda Mortimer, a rich American, only a month and a half later. The embarrassment created hopeless harm on Margaret's standing and her relationship with her little girl Frances, who wedded the Duke of Rutland and is presently the Dowager Duchess and grandma to Lady Violet, Lady Alice and Lady Eliza Manners. Frances came to consider her to be as a bad dream of humiliation, a companion revealed to Vanity Fair in 1968. The pair accommodated before Margaret's passing in 1993, so, all things considered, she was inhabiting St. George's nursing home in Pimlico. Ian died in 1973. A Very British Scandal will be written by Sarah Phelps, who recently wrote The Pale Horse, Dublin Murders and the 2012 miniseries adaptation of Great Expectations. She said, composing the narrative of Margaret's life and the occasions paving the way to and including her separation from the Duke has been a meaningful venture of mine since 1993, when I originally heard her name and began finding out about her. I felt emphatically that she'd been rebuffed for being a lady, for being obvious, for declining to withdraw, be a decent young lady and go unobtrusively. This dramatization is my accolade for her. Claire Foy, who featured as Queen Elizabeth II in the initial 2 arrangement of The Crown, said, "I'm so eager to work with Anne, Sarah and Paul on this exceptional task, and to investigate through this story, how regularly disgrace, judgment and contention encompasses a lady's sexuality." Her co-star Paul Bettany, who most as of late featured in WandaVision and Solo, a Star Wars story, added, "I'm enchanted to be working with the striking Claire Foy to recount the interesting and shameful story of the Duke and Duchess of Argyll and their extremely muddled lives. I'm additionally incredibly glad to find the opportunity to by be working with the awesome groups at the BBC and Amazon Studios." Pete Chernin, prime supporter of Blueprint Pictures, said, "We're excited to have the option to unite the interestingly splendid voices of Sarah Phelps and Anne Sawitsky with the class of Claire Foy and Paul Bettany. Joining their remarkable gifts, a very British scandal will focus another light on the outrageous separation of Margaret Argyll for a 21st-century audience." Piers Wenger, director of BBC Drama, said, "A